You're calling from a 734 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
Yeah, that's you.
All right, sorry. Yeah, I was just, I was wondering, what do you think we can kind of do for Brazil? Thinking of recently, I don't know if you saw it, but they said climate change is like a Marxist hoax or something on the thing. And so I was thinking,
Brazil's new foreign minister that they've appointed is literally a pro-Trump blogger who has said that climate change is a hoax, and is like Jordan Peterson's always is talking about cultural Marxism. Is the new Bolsonaro is going to be Bolsonaro's foreign minister? Yes.
Yeah. So I was thinking, so I think you mentioned earlier at some point that we should be pressuring, people on the, we should pressuring, Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders and people like that. And so, we have this interesting kind of, they pressured successfully for, this Green New Deal. And I think they're pushing for that. And I think we're getting some headway with that. So I think, what kind of, intersection we can make, what kind of, we can put the pressure to kind of, I think,
your phone's kind of clicking out, so I got an answer for you. I'm just gonna let you go because your phone's clicking out, but I really appreciate the call. Yes, every single self-proclaimed progressive and every single Democrat, and I'm not even gonna say Republican because let's be real. Every single self-proclaimed progressive and every single Democrat, and I guess if there was some Republican who had a flash of sanity for a second or humanity, needs to be speaking about the threat specifically that Bolsonaro is going to pose to his people and to the globe. Ro Khanna put out a letter that was co-signed by I think about 30-something people on the eve of the election, specifically warning about Bolsonaro. There needs to be a clear and consistent accounting of the conditions that have led here, including the parliamentary coup against Dilma Rousseff, the history of that, the effort to delegitimize the Workers' Party, and just this grotesque political imprisonment and war against Lula da Silva. Lula da Silva is absolutely a political prisoner. He's one of the most important members of the 21st century. He's the most successful modern president. And anybody who has any type of claim to leadership on the left needs to be talking about the Amazon. They need to be demanding freeing Lula and so on. I'll just quote briefly. This was a report from actually unfortunately I don't have the source in front of me, but I'll read briefly from it. It was tweeted out by the Brazil Solidarity Initiative, which is in the UK, and I'm quoting now. Senator Lindbergh Faras addressed the European Left Forum on behalf of Brazil's Workers' Party PT in Belbu on Friday the 9th, November 2018. He asked participants of the forum to build enormous movements in solidarity with the Brazilian people who are resisting U.S. intervention, the rise of fascism, and the political persecution of the country's most popular politician, former President Lula da Silva, who's languishing in prison. And the title of this piece is PT Appeals for Solidarity at European Left Forum Against U.S. Recolonization of Brazil and for Lula's Freedom. The European, I'll just quote a bit more. Faras explained that the rise of fascist Jair Bolsonaro is directed and sponsored by the U.S., which is attempting to recolonize Brazil in order to expropriate natural resources and the wealth of the country. Donald Trump's former chief strategist, Steve Bannon, played a role in Bolsonaro's election, which gained massive momentum in the last month ahead of the final round of voting through the widespread proliferation of fake news. And as it goes on, Lula was jailed by indeterminate acts of corruption with no trial evidence against him. The prosecutor, Sergio Moro, has close links to the U.S., has joined the Bolsonaro government as justice minister. Lula was jailed by Moro in order to stop him becoming the president of Brazil, and all polls indicated he would have beaten Bolsonaro in the election. So some people, De Horns has been tweeting regularly at AOC. I think she's great. I'm kind of shocked she hasn't already spoken out against this. And I would also say that, gently and respectfully, all of the main personalities on the Young Turks should be talking about Lula and the situation in Brazil. Certainly a good time to revisit people's coverage across the board of Lava Jato. And we just need to have a lot of pressure put. And I also know that there's people from the Workers' Party and from Brazil traveling to the United States, and there's a huge amount of mobilization going on right now. The Brazilian left is still an incredibly powerful force. And Fernando Haddad still got, I think, about 40 million votes. And there still is the landless people's movement. There's a huge amount of, actual robust resistance there, but they're going to need a huge amount of solidarity. And ultimately, and this is another thing I'll just say, last thing, you got to consider this when you think about who to vote for president in 2020. And I'm not interested, I'm not excited about that conversation, but so far Bernie Sanders is just bounds ahead of his rivals in connecting. I mean, the only other one with any kind of real progressive vision domestically is Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie's is more sophisticated, systemic, and class-based than hers to begin with. And no one else has had anything affirmative and clear to say about foreign policy. Bernie has, and Bernie specifically talked about Lula. And they all need to, and the broader threat of global fascism and how it relates to corporate-driven inequality. And the Koch brothers are involved in Brazil, too, through the Atlas Network. And also, the last thing I'll pin on it is there's been some recent interventions with Russia and China in Venezuela, one of which is very disturbing, a national ID card which can monitor people's movements, which is produced by a Chinese company. That's a terrible sign for Venezuelan rights, which are already very damaged. And conversely, just as I always say to the dum-dums on the other side, I support the United States backing Kurdish fighters in the Syrian context, period. And on the flip side, if Russia and China can, with their own amorality and empire and self-driven interest, if they can block an attempted U.S. military engagement with Venezuela because of their presence there, that's great. So we need to, be practical about this and really demand that personalities and politicians and everybody beyond this. You just enjoyed that Michael Brooks Show video, and you can get a lot more by subscribing to us here at the Michael Brooks Show YouTube channel. It's literally right there.